Cheers. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 216 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. We're focusing on communication. Communication area of the life framework, the 9-part life framework that I've used, 7 parts of it since the 1980s. But I added communication and confidence, which is, we're talking about communication this month. We still haven't talked about contribution or confidence, but we're going to talk about those over the next 2 months following this month. And our topic today is modes of communication, or different ways of categorizing communication. And I thought there were maybe 3 or 4 before I did a little research, and I found out there's actually, communication can be broken down into 12 different categories. So I'm going to, or modes, right? A mode is a category. So I'm going to share those, a brief description of what they are, and then I'm going to ask you for your action item today. What is your favorite mode of communication? What is your favorite way to communicate? Now, I know it's different for different relationships and in different settings, but overall, we have a tendency that we like to communicate. I personally, I guess I'll share mine after I go through the different types and tell you what I like and what I don't like, and it might surprise you. So, I'm going to grab my magnifying glass because otherwise I can't see my notes, because I would not remember all 12 otherwise. The first one, of course, is nonverbal communication, where it's things like our eye contact, our posture, our body language, all those nonverbal cues is one of the first, and it's actually the most telling as well as the most prevalent type of communication. We don't even have to exchange words or language in order to understand how someone's feeling. If I'm having a bad day, everybody knows it just by my posture, the way I look, the expression on my face, my energy, etc. Secondly, verbal communication. I obviously like verbal communication. I talk quite a lot. I also listen quite a lot, but I talk a lot as well. So verbal communication, we all know what that is. Speaking, language, talking. Visual communication, things like pictures, movies, scenery, things like that are all visual, and they have a way of communicating a message with them. And then written communication, of course. Those are actually the main 4. And I always can think of those and thought of those, but there's a whole bunch more and a whole bunch of different nuances to different types of communication. So, nonverbal, verbal, visual, written are the first 4. Now, I'll talk about this when I'm done. Then there is interpersonal communication, the communication we have with other people, right? Other human beings. Intrapersonal is the communication we have with ourselves, our self-talk, our self-reflection, our thoughts in our head. Those are all intra, with an A, personal communication. Mass communication, we know what that is: radio, television, newspapers. It's stuff that's just shoved out to the masses, social media posts, things like that. But the internet is mass media, right? Wasn't always mass media, but it sure is now. Then there is synchronous, and asynchronous. And I wasn't sure what these were, but synchronous means that you're simultaneously engaged and involved with the communication at the same time as the other person you're with. So things like one-on-one meetings, phone calls that you're actually talking to another human being, video calls, Zoom calls, those became all the rage. I was doing them a long time ago, but during the pandemic, even my mom, who's 86, can do video Zoom calls and calls like that. Instant messaging and live chat support. These are examples of synchronous, meaning you're communicating with another human being at the same time, and you're giving instant feedback and things. Asynchronous means it's things like you're exchanging information, but the other person doesn't have to be simultaneously present. So if I'm emailing someone, they can read it whenever they read it. When I'm leaving somebody a recorded message on their phone, they'll listen to it when they listen to it, but they don't have to be there for me to communicate with them and give them a message. Social media posts would be an example of that. Collaborative documents, nowadays you can collaborate on your documents. So if you have a Google Doc or a Word doc and you want someone's feedback on it, you can send them the document, and then they can go through it and edit it or add their comments whenever they want. Those are examples of that. Then there's formal communication, which is structured communication that follows guidelines and rules that everybody agrees upon. So this wasn't listed, but I would think of contracts and formal meetings with agendas and business letters, resumes. A resume is a formal communication. And then informal is casual and spontaneous, conversations with friends, saying hi to somebody as you walk by them, waving and communicating with the postmaster or whatever people you come across in your daily life, being, communicating with your barista, your coffee barista, or your nail salon, etc. Those chats that are informal, not planned, don't follow any rules or guidelines, that would be an example of the informal mode of communication. And then finally, there's meta communication. And meta communication is actually communication about communication. So when we're in a conversation with someone, if we're checking back and we're doing things like following up, asking questions to understand, if we're giving nonverbal cues of agreement and understanding, all of that to try to gauge how the communication is going. Things like flags on social media posts are communication about communication that say, this may not be true, or this might be false, or this might be misinformation. Isn't it interesting that the things that are flagged are really the truth 99% of the time? It's fine. It's pretty funny. So communication about communication is considered meta communication. So lots of information, right? And if you need more information, of course, in Guide 17 of the Get Up and Go Challenge private Facebook group page, there is a write-up for today, day 216, about these and about the advantages, the benefits, and the pitfalls of each of the different types of communication. I'm not sure all 12 are on there. I'd have to go back and look because I did other research to find the 12. So I'm like, well, I have a hard time in my brain coming up with 12 different modes of communication. But then if you Google it, you get answers. So what is your preferred favorite way of communicating? We all like and dislike certain types of communication. I, for example, people might not know this, but I hate talking on the phone. And I don't say hate very often, but I do not like talking on the phone. Why? Because you miss so much of the information, and it's the same with text messaging. It's so easy to misinterpret the information that's being provided. It's actually easier on the phone because you've got tone of voice and things like that. But text messaging, number one, I don't see very well, so I'm not very good at it and make a lot of typos and mistakes, which irritates the daylights out of me personally. Self-talk, right? There's my intrapersonal commentary, but I'm not a phone person. I don't like talking on the phone. I don't like texting. I do obviously like videos. I've literally done thousands of them. I think almost 6,800, probably more, probably 7,000 already in the last 5 years or so. So I like speaking and I like doing videos for one-way communication, right? But I also like video chats and Zoom. And like I said, I was doing Zoom long before, and not just Zoom, other forms of video chatting with people long before the COVID pandemic, because I want to see the person I'm working with. I want to see the person I'm talking to. I want to have, if we can't meet in person, I want to find ways to duplicate that as much as possible in order to make sure our communication is clear and that we do understand one another. Written, I love written, and reading. I love reading. Even though I can't see very well, I still find ways to read because I think it's a terrific way to get information. And I like writing. I've always liked writing ever since I was a little girl. Even though my stories were ridiculous, I have always liked writing. So, what's our action item today? Think about the different categories or modes or ways of communicating and what your preferences are and what you don't like. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to build on the things you like to do, and we're going to minimize the impact of the ways you don't like to communicate, because that's how we become a better communicator, which is usually one of all of our goals. All right, any questions? Ask. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow. Bye.